Yeah, so I think that when you ask someone how long have they been in business, and we know that it's longer than 2 years, basically you have an idea that that business has to have been successful. Otherwise, where else are you getting that money? So that's the first thing I ask. And then the funny thing is one of the other mistakes that everyone makes is they go and they say, how much do you turn over, or how much profit do you make?
Yeah.
Now, many of the guys will know how much profit they make, but they have to do the calculation. It's not like pulling it out of your things. What I'd say is that we look at input costs, we suddenly get a very interesting look at how big that business is. A simple example, the lady who does 3,000 fare cook a day, her husband buys 40 bags of 12.5 kg flour every single week. He's got the invoice he gets from the wholesaler where he buys it. He buys 5 20-litre drums of cooking oil. He buys, all of these ingredients. He's got the receipt. The quarter outlet...
He's got his pulse on the button.
The quarter outlet gets 600 loaves of unsliced bread delivered every single day. He's got the slip there, and he makes 2,400 quarters. He has 80 bags of potatoes that his staff peel every single day. Now, it's so easy. Take that information. That information is there. Add it up and say, okay, well, he spends 100,000 Rand a month on his ingredients and supplies for his product. And work out his simple margin on a quarter. Let's say he makes 40%, 30%, 10%. It doesn't matter what his margin is. You can take that cost and you can say, oh, okay, this is how much he turns over and this is how much profit he makes. But we don't do that.
That's exactly it, and I think this is the lenses that we are wearing all over the world, in whether it's the favelas in Brazil, or townships in South Africa and so forth. There's, through what you're saying and what I'm listening, there's an incredible degree of sophistication and economic power, and yet the support ecosystem, the infrastructure, the formalization assistance, if formalization was a goal, is completely, or at least it appears, non-existent for anybody who is not SARS registered, who doesn't have a bank account, who doesn't have a pastel accounting software running the system. What has been your experience or your frustration when you look at this incredible economic opportunity in front of our eyes from an SME support infrastructure?
Okay, so I think that the very first one is security of tenure. Is that the reality is that the average outlet has no ownership or rights to the space they have. Let's go back to the lady who does 3,000 fare cook a day. One of the reasons she doesn't, or her and her husband don't invest more money into their little business, is that tomorrow and I wrote about, they say, we have no guarantee. So they've been there for 11 years, they make 30,000 Rand a month profit, and tomorrow the city of Joburg can arrive, and has done it many times, and take their stuff, throw it away, and they have to go and buy a new door that they use as a table, and they don't invest in improving the quality of their equipment and so on because of that problem. Now there's a very simple solution to this, and the simple solution is that if you look in the tribal areas, and even if you look at places like Mozambique, when you want to start a trading store in the old days in South Africa, you went to the magistrate, you gave him a bottle of whiskey, and you went to the chief and you gave him a bottle of brandy, and they gave you the rights to what they called a PTO, which is a permission to occupy. And the PTO is like sectional title. In Mozambique they have a duat, and many countries where they don't have formal title deeds, they give you the rights for the space. You own any infrastructure you build on it, but you never own the land, but you have the rights to that, to operate trade.
Like an operating lease.
100%. What does it allow you? It allows you at any stage you want to stop doing work, you can sell the rights to the space. It allows you the security that you can say, okay, I will get better equipment here because it's not going to be confiscated. It also allows for the city to say, how can we supply services to each one of these PTO sites? Because now that person needs rubbish removal. The trader on the street is saying, why don't they take the rubbish away? I take it, I don't throw the rubbish in the street next to me because my place needs to be clean. I take it to the corner over there. So Do we supply infrastructure? Our cities were designed for for a way of doing business that was done in London in the 1800s. Very interesting book about it. But we have not changed that model of city planning in more than 100 years. Now, we are not adapting to, so how do we supply water services, refuse services, electricity, and so on in the space where traders want to operate? So that's the first thing. The second thing we need to recognize is that modern trade, whether it's the gig economy or the informal economy or anything, operates where the consumer is. The consumer is increasingly not, shopping is not a destination. Shopping is an experience or it's a convenience. It's an experience if you're going to the mall, you take your kids, you do whatever. In America, all the malls that are not experiences are dying. If you look at Dubai, Dubai had 80% retail, 20% experience. They've swapped it around. It's now 80% experience, 20% retail because consumers are looking for experiences.
Awful.
Outside of experiences, all forms of shopping are increasingly about convenience and proximity. I shoot over to the corner shop. I shoot over to the corner pizza place. It's and so the same with the informal economy. That gazebo on the side of the road on Woodmead Boulevard, or that caravan at the industrial area, is where the person needs to the worker climbs off the industrial site and he goes to the caravan, he buys his lunch from the caravan. City of Joburg says a caravan shouldn't be here and wants to chase them away. Coca-Cola can tell you, if you do not have a Coke an arm's length away from people, people will not buy that Coke. So they've invested worldwide in kiosks, in little wheelbarrows and stuff. The ice cream people will tell you the same. Dairy Maid, you have to be where people are, walking down a beach or whatever it might be. The same goes for our informal sector. Now, what happens is that cities say, no, but this is not a shopping area, this is a street. So we have to say, how do we plan? And there's different dynamics. Listen, a hair salon is going to be different, is a more destination versus a fair cook outlet versus, and so on and so forth. The corner spaza shop is very much about weekly or daily shopping, and so the little spazas in the street, the spazarette, the more supermarket type, is on the street corner. Each one of those dynamics are the same, and so we have to again adapt for those different retail sectors. The city of Cape Town doesn't say, well, you know what, this is shopping and light industrial and entertainment. We're all going to put it all in the same rules and same regulations. But with the formal sector, where they just throw it all into the same place, this whole thing survives micro enterprise.
Yep.
We don't create an ecosystem that is adapted for different types of businesses and their different needs. So going back to the first for me is that security of tenure. The second is supplying the relevant or required services where that trader wants to operate. And then the third for me is generally the biggest issue all of these businesses have is cash flow. And we look at a lot of the credit in terms of saying we'll help them buy, build a bigger store, buy a bucky, whatever it is. Most of the dynamics of the smaller businesses is actually cash flow. They struggle to grow the amount of stock they have. So it's hand to mouth. I sell it, and then I make a profit, and I live off the profit. But I can never, and I take the money to restock, and I restock the same amount. I never restock another 20 or 30% more stock, and so therefore start turning over 20 or 30% more. So whether it's rotating credit, or so say being able to just buy stock, so instead of someone receiving the money, they can get credit at a wholesaler, and they can go to a wholesaler and get that in stock. Or the hair salon. The hair salons, for instance, if you look around the country, the hair salon doesn't supply you with the hair extension, the Brazilian hair extension you want, or the relaxer or stuff. You buy it at ShopRite and you bring it, and then I fit it or style it for you, whatever it might be. Now, why is that? Is that the hair salon doesn't have the cash flow to carry a range of Brazilian hair extensions and different styles and whatever it might be. So I think often we look at credit and we say, how do we lend them credit to, and we think of credit in the typical kind of business environment, as opposed to cash flow. For me, it's about cash flow credit. It's about this rolling, rotating credit, and and then second to that credit is then credit to grow their business, or investment in growing their business. Now they can't get the first one because they don't have the rights to the property, and so it's just
is that because our perception of risk is completely misplaced?
Absolutely, it's one of the biggest problems, and so let me give you I think there's a massive opportunity in our township environment for home loan type products. Now currently, if you want to extend your house or create a back room to rent it out, you want to start a little business renting out, Airbnb type business, renting out a back room for 1,200 Rand to 2,000 Rand a month, you have to get a micro loan. Now micro loan costs you 5% a month, okay, so it's 200% a year, and so actually it's impossible for you to do that, or you wait for the stokvel to pay it out. Now, if we just looked differently, and one of the reasons people say that they can't lend to people in the township stuff is risk. Now, an aside, I visited a house the other day, and they were building around. I've got a picture of it somewhere, and they're building this big house around a tiny little four-room house. Yeah. They're still living in the four-room house, and they're extending around it. And I took this picture, and I chatted to the people in this house, and knocked on the door, and I just don't know about it. And I was chatting to this lady. I said to her, I really like your renovation. It's going to be a really nice big house. She said, it took a long time to get permission to do this. So I said, why? She says, we had to get permission from GG. She says, it took us 5-6 years to get permission from GG. I was like, why did it take so long to get permission from your grandmother? She said, no, she died 6 years ago. so they had to go and get the Sangoma to go and communicate, with the spirits, and get, GG to give her a spiritual nod of approval. Now, can you imagine that home ever letting that house that GG actually owns or lives in spiritually, letting that be taken or attached by some sort of company? So there's no risk, but you have to look at different models of risk. The risk that we look at, because for us, the ownership of a home is a capital thing. It's just a house of four walls. Yeah. In an African society, it's the seat of the home. It's where the spirits reside. It has huge value beyond, which is why townships don't have suburbs with a rich suburb and a poor suburb. You have a big house next to a small house, because people don't move out of that, because the social networks and community strength means you don't want to sell, you'd rather invest. So
you actually have more risk investing in a person who doesn't give a shit about the property, forgive my French, and moves on and leaves.
100%. So the factors that define risk are, and if we look at the hawker again, go back to Golden Delicious in downtown Joburg, her and husband have been there for 11 years. It's their entire livelihood. They could not ever stop selling Fetcook and go and start working somewhere else. So what is the chance that they would not pay the whatever repayments they had on some sort of loan or stuff? Zero, because actually this is their total...
Yeah, there's no plan B.
There's no plan B. I was reading something about agriculture of small farmers in America, and these small farmers are getting more and deeper into debt, and because this is my grandmother's, my great-great-grandfather's farm. This legacy or heritage means that they don't want to lose it. The same goes, but we don't look at it in terms of saying, this was your great-grandfather's farm, you would never let it be repossessed by some stranger. We have to look at that, and Africa is a difference, but the Grameen Bank was built on understanding social community dynamics. He would only lend to a group of 10 ladies at a time, because the social pressure of each one of those ladies on each other meant that, and Africa is the same. It's an honor continent. With society, America, the West is a guilt society. Africa is an honor society. And if we take that into account, we'll have a very different dynamic.
And it just taps into a beautiful point that 2 points. One is that most SME ecosystems are template designed based on some, let's call it, authority, perceived authority in a complete different circumstantial environment, a complete cultural different environment. And second, from what you're saying, they're designed based on completely outdated information. How, if you had unlimited resources, I gave you the keys, let's say, to the city of Johannesburg, and I say, design the ideal SME support ecosystem. You kind of touched on it about it already, give more plug and play opportunities, give more rights. Paint a picture of what would be the ideal SME support ecosystem.
Okay, so I need to give it a little bit more thought, but so my starting point would be to say, do nothing for unemployed people. It sounds terrible. If you have someone who is genuinely unemployed, they are unemployable. And this is one of the things we feel shame, we must get someone who's unemployed and we must help them. The reality is that there are a lot less unemployed people out there. These figures of 29.1% are absolute garbage because we do not measure any of the income generating activities in small businesses out there. My numbers are around 12%. But let's just move on from that. The reality is that if you start off with someone who is selling 10 apples a day, that person is the right kind of person to be employed, to support with some sort of benefit. So the starting point for me is we have to start with existing small businesses. And the greatest opportunity is we take these little businesses, we help grow their profit, we help them employ someone else to work for them, and so on and so forth. That is the starting point. Let us start and not say we're creating employment. Not every black person wants to have a job. Many of them want to have a business. So let the ShopRites of the world and the Anglo-Americans of the world create jobs. And Nedbank and FNB and Standard Bank and so on and so forth. That's fantastic, and let them do whatever they can. But there's a huge number of small businesses out there that by literally small interventions, we can double that person's turnover, we can double their profit, they'll employ someone else, they'll start another shop, they'll will start another little stand down the road. And those people need simple interventions. And this is the ridiculous part.
For example, give me 2 or 3 simple interventions that you, with the city of Johannesburg keys in your hand, could do. Or would do.
So the first one is I would go out there and I would map every one of those little businesses and I would give them the rights to the space they operate at. Okay. The second, I would provide infrastructure to those outlets. If a food outlet, I would supply them with the ability to get water and electricity to that waste.
And the technologies exist. It's a water pipe, tap and go, credit card or debit card for electricity.
There's a shop right behind it. Just pipe it from the shop. They generally already have a relationship with that shop. The Shisanyama on the street is buying from the butchery literally 200 meters behind. The price differential goes from the truck that arrives here with a bag of tomatoes. And he sells that bag of tomatoes for 50 Rand to the guy here. This guy sells in bulk, he sells it to 80 Rand to the lady over here. The lady over here, she sells it for the equivalent of 150 Rand, but selling in little plates of five quantities. And if you ask them, who is your competition? They'll never tell you each other. They'll say ShopRite, Fruit and Veg City, Pick and Pay, whatever it might be. They understand this mutual kind of benefit. So supply them those kind of services and link them upstream if you need to them. So I would map those, I'd supply them with services, and I would supply them with credit facilities, but credit facilities linking to we want to create an ecosystem. So for argument's sake, the wholesaler in that street, he must supply them with credit on stock in that street because he solves all sorts of things. He gives them storage at night in return for shopping from him. You're not going to have to transport it with trucks and those kind of elements. He understands what is the product that the people need. His pricing is generally appropriate to that space. What I've understood in my time in this space, don't try and replicate systems that and models that this sector has paid their school fees on over years. Understand how that system works and facilitate efficiencies in that system.
Almost formalizing the sophisticated linkages that already exist.
100%. Or supercharge them. You know, if the person's only buying 50 rands worth of stock from the wholesaler, give them the ability to buy 80 rands worth. So, now suddenly imagine all of those people are suddenly growing their turnover. And what we're doing is that we are taking the existing, you know, this ecosystem, and economically ecosystems do better than individual businesses, because now you're not looking at a individual business, we're helping that business, we're saying you as a community of business. Look at the city of Joburg was taken to court by in downtown Joburg by the Hawker Association. They took them to the High Court. Now that tells you the level of sophistication of the Hawker Association, that they were able to mobilize money, everyone made contributions, they got a lawyer, they took the city of Joburg, they still have an interdict against them at the moment. Now that points to the fact that why is the city not working with this group like this? In Warwick Street, I'll give you a book after this, in Warwick Street in Durban, there's a remarkable business, a company, that NGO that has worked with the hawkers. There are thousands of hawkers in the Warwick Street Triangle. They have made that over 10 years a tourist hotspot. No crime, no litter. Those hawkers pay 80 Rand to 120 Rand per square meter in rental to the city. Okay, so you have this wonderful model. Let me tell you what, I phoned them the other day to say
which is much cheaper than tax collection strategies and...
So I say to this NGO the other day, I say, how's it going? They say, we've got a really big problem. They said the city was charging people rental monthly.
Yeah.
But the city has decided, the city of Durban has decided they want to be paid annually. They will not be paid monthly anymore. And if you don't pay them annually, then you're an illegal trader. Now, is that a city enhancing?
Yes.
And
because their systems are outdated in terms of collection.
Their systems, they don't want to get 120 Rand from 2,000 people. They want to get 1,200 Rand once a year from those people.
And yet, if we look at the world's economies, the Ubers of this world, the Airbnb, they are moving towards the 100 Rands people.
Build a financial model that allows people to pay you using their phone or whatever, just in that marketplace. Now, so going back to this, they've created an ecosystem there, and what they found in that marketplace was that the reasons that people were there, for instance, the food people sold food to the people who were selling clothes and muti and whatever. There were trolley pushers who were, moving goods between. So within this ecosystem, you had this multitude of businesses. And over 10 years, they understood exactly the dynamics. They did things like, they found that there were ladies who were cooking maize meal in 44-gallon drums. And they were selling 3 million Rand a week's worth of millies to other hawkers who were then spreading out in the streets of Durban and selling it. And they said, you can't have open fires. The city of Durban said, you can't have open fires. So they said, well, the lady said it'll never work on gas. So the city said, no, you have to move to gas. So the lady said, we'll have a cook-off. We cook on fire, you cook on gas, and we see which works better. Of course, the gas failed. So then the city went away with this NGO and developed like pizza oven type open fires. And they all living happily ever after. But they understood the needs of that specific sector or whatever dynamic it was. The problem is it needs a lot more work and it needs a lot more fine-tuning to adapt to this. And to your point, this is what the ability of the Ubers and stuff will work, because everyone's got a smartphone. Tell me what you need. Let's understand. Let's track. Let's put a GPS tracker on someone selling millies and watch where they go and see what are some of their pain points. So in terms of building an ecosystem, building the support structures, I think some of them are these simple things: give security, give rotating credit, give services and stuff like that. But I think overlaid on that, let's look at these, whether it's a township economy, it's a suburb, Dobsonville, Dube, whatever it might be. Let's look at those and understand the web of interconnectedness between theirs. There's a Bucky Brigade driver who gets paid to go to the wholesaler and come and deliver. So they don't need delivery. They've got an existing infrastructure. What can they do? Maybe we can enable that Bucky guy by giving him an Uber type product so that the hawker doesn't have to phone. They can just order, and they can order online, and we tie in those are the dynamics that make it successful.
And there is 3 takeaways that I get from your perspectives. One is the economy is there, the market is functioning, the trade is happening. Government, change your approach to not just to submit annual returns and then we will tax you, but tap into this plethora of technological platforms coming out. And there are transactional fees you can get, and you could double your tax base.
Every single one. People ask me this about tax all the time. So the first thing I say to people is, listen, this sector is paying VAT on a large scale. A friend of mine I met him, he read my book, and we became friends, and they sell about 10 billion rands worth of potatoes from City Deep Market every year. 10 billion rands worth of potatoes. Of those, he says between 70 and 80% are bought by hawkers or township traders. So do you know the impact on the agricultural sector if we did not have this sector? But let's just go back to tax and so they're paying VAT on these things. Every one of these traders would pay rent, and the Warwick Street example is a living, breathing proof of it, and they would pay tax. But currently they'll say, why? What for? Yeah. I will pay rent if I have the rights to this. 100%, and that goes for any business in the world. I want I will pay tax. What is the benefit of paying tax? Remember, many of them earn less than 10,000 rand a month, so they wouldn't be paying tax on that. So that's another thing people forget. They say, oh, but none of these people are paying tax. I'm like, yeah, but they're below the tax threshold. But the reality is that there are a number of ways that the city could make money out of these. I mean, the city owns the fruit and veg market apart from anything else, and that would fail if they didn't have the hawker on the street doing this. But beyond that, I think that every single one of the people I worked with, interviewed for the book and stuff like that, when I asked them would they pay rent and would they pay tax, not a single, and most of them are already paying some sort of informal
Of course, the
tax.
security guard, the storage fee.
100%. Would you pay? They'd say, for what? And I'd say, these are the things you told me you need. Yeah. If you got these things, of course, immediately, there was not even a question, because they can see the value. They can see that I would grow my business. I'd have security. I'd have, so there's massive upside. But the upside is not, the Minister of Small Business, the previous one, said we need to create more entrepreneurs in the townships. I was like, now that is the problem, is that we do not see these people as entrepreneurs, as businesses. Let us recognize township micro businesses, not so micro business, and entrepreneurs as businesses. Let's recognize that they are there, and let's see how do we grow those businesses. The opportunity is not in finding more entrepreneurs. The opportunity is not taking unemployed people and making them employed. It's about taking informally employed people and helping them formalize and grow their businesses. The unemployed people are going to carry on sitting in the street. I'm terribly sorry for them, and so on. But it's also not taking the person who wants to be employed, who wants a job. I think that the Yes Initiative, an example, is a great initiative. But it's about taking people and putting them in internships in formal businesses. Those are certain level of people. Those people will never start their own business.
Absolutely.
As a rule. I'm not saying, but as a rule, those people want to be employed at Edgar's and FNB and Standard Bank, and great, there's an opportunity for that. But in this sector that I'm talking about, you want to create 1 million jobs in this country, you create it by immediately, that Nigeria transformed the size of the economy by measuring parts that they'd never measured.
Powerful.
Can you imagine our unemployment numbers if we measured real unemployment? If we measured those 20 billion rand that goes into backroom rental as incomes that people are receiving, we would suddenly have a different measure of our economy. And we'd all feel a lot better, and actually we'd have a more realistic measure of our economy. But if we don't measure it, we don't recognize the scale. We don't recognize these as economically active individuals and businesses, and then we don't create solutions, support systems, infrastructure. We don't do any of that around that. And my biggest thing about that, as you would have read at the end of Guy's Economic Revolution, we have to recognize the sector. We are never going to create the jobs in the formal economy worldwide. I mean, we're not just South Africa's an island.
Absolutely.
Worldwide, you're not creating more jobs in the formal economy. The jobs that are growing are the almost mom and pop type shops. It's the sometimes multiple forms of income.
Which used to be anyway the case in history.
Absolutely.
Everybody was self-employed.
And we are the gig economy is moving in that direction, the informal economy. And look, it's not about South Africa. I'm using some South African examples. My work and my writing in Nigeria, in Accra, in Mozambique, in Lusaka, the dynamics of that informal sector are almost identical. When I was in Lagos, they would take me around. I was asking questions. Have you been to Lagos before? I was like, no, it's just the same in Joburg. That's impossible. Of course, people have the same solutions to the same dynamics. So we could, on a continental scale, look at this. I mean, places like India are starting to be far ahead of us. In Africa, we need to do this. And if we look at that sector differently, then immediately, and that differently is a simple different. Just one thing. I just want one Minister of Small Business or Trade and Industry or whatever to say, those are all businesses. Every one of those. I want the mayor to say, those are businesses. And the minute you change the mindset, and I spoke at the Top 100 Sunday Times event the other day with all of these top business people, and I said to them, guys, it is your responsibility. Do you know how many people in this room, black people and white people, were put through and became what you became because you had a gogo who was selling fed cook on the street, a mom who was making money from a backroom rental? That is your responsibility. Those people put you where you are. And today you look back at your gogo, your mother, your auntie, and you actually do not respect them. And yet they actually put you there.
The second takeaway, which I absolutely love in what you're mentioning, is in times of austerity, of governments around the world's budget shrinking or misplaced.
Yeah.
What you're talking about here doesn't add cost. It's just unlocking value, putting a little bit more brain power, opening your eyes. But the stuff is there.
Absolutely. And they would earn more money. The city would earn more money. If maybe they now have 10 or 100,000 people paying 120 Rand a square meter as opposed to 10 malls paying whatever. I bet you that the actual return, once they solve the ability to get that money and be paid, would be far higher, and most importantly, it is ultimately more sustainable.
This has been an eye-opener for me, even so I thought my eyes were open through all my travels. Thank you so much for these insights. We're going to put all the links to the various examples that we mentioned. I'll get them from you, and we'll put them below the video. His book you can find just about everywhere, but I'll put the link to the website if you want to have your eyes opened. I'll also put his contact details if you want to get in touch with him. SME ecosystems, we can get them right. They don't cost anything, or they don't cost more than any other initiative to try to fix economies. They are right there, they're already functioning. All we got to do is recognize them and incorporate them. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.